Senator Elizabeth Warren has teamed up with John McCain and a couple of other bipartisan lawmakers to bring back Glass-Steagal. About fucking time. It would, of course, like the original Glass-Steagall, separate commercial and investment banking. So now you no longer have banks using depositor money in their casinos, which is
Right.
absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, risking other people's money in order to make risky ventures.
In order to make more money for themselves.
Right.
So what Warren had to say when she introduced this bill to the Senate, she said, quote, "It will take a lot of tools to get rid of too big to fail, but one of them ought to be that if you wanted to do high-stakes gambling, good on you. But you do not get access to people's checking accounts and savings accounts." I love this. Obviously, we're big fans here of Senator Warren. She's actually one of the few progressives that still, is in the Senate.
Yes.
And it's nice to see that she's teamed up with John McCain. John McCain, wrong about 98% of the time, but there's that 2% of the time when it comes to campaign finance reform and this, where we back John McCain 100%, and we think he's actually making the right decision instead of the wrong decision. So a little bit more information here on Glass-Steagall. The new bill would separate traditional banks that offer checking and savings accounts insured by the FDIC from riskier financial institutions. The latter category includes companies involved in investment banking, insurance, swap dealings, hedge funds, and private equity. Now, we seem to have a little bit of a problem back in 2008 with all the swaps.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily new legislation. I mean,
It's bringing back old legislation, which is great.
yeah, that was basically defunded and wiped out in what, late 1999?
In 1999, it was repealed by the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, I believe.
The thing that I worry about with bringing it back is whether or not it's actually going to pass. That's what I'm worried about.
That's one thing, because you've got a lot of people, a lot of banks who are not going to be happy with this.
Right, they're going to be viciously against it. So, I'm wondering, is the system currently so corrupt that passing something like this is beyond our realm of possibility?
Well, even if it's not, I think that it's a good idea to have it out there because
Oh, absolutely.
you're going to get a lot of
I hope
attention
it
to it.
passes.
It was one of the instruments in its repeal. It was one of the key instruments in our economic downfall.
And if it can get passed, and if it does pass, and we get that measure of justice, then I think it will bring us one step closer to doing other separations, like separating corporate money and the lobbying system and getting money out of politics.
Well, I think we're only going to be able to do that on a state level because Congress is far too corrupt, so I'm not exactly thinking that this bill is going to get through this Congress, but it sends a pretty good message like, hey, banks, we're coming.
Right, it does send a message. As long as they keep fighting, I do hope it passes, though. That would be wonderful.
Right, and of course, Warren had this to say as well. She said, based on what the regulators did to Glass-Steagall over the last 30 years, I don't expect anyone on this panel will jump and endorse the new Glass-Steagall bill. Even so, we're going to keep pushing for it, and that's why I love Elizabeth Warren, because she is out there. She has, been fighting the banks. She's been fighting for students. She has been fantastic on these issues. She's been grilling the regulators.
She's one of the few people in Congress who is not only a progressive, someone who's a real progressive Democrat, but someone who I think is really trying to fight for a better future, a better country, someone who's trying to fight for the side of justice, as corny as it may sound to probably most of the people around her, but she has a lot of strength of character. She's standing up to big banks, big businesses, and I really think that in the future, not in 2016 necessarily, but in the future at some point, maybe 2020, we will see her run for president.
That would be really hilarious if she were to Obama, if she would Obama Hillary. That would make it twice that somebody had come and stolen the nomination for her. Now, of course, we know all the polls that Hillary is obviously way ahead, but you know who's in second? Elizabeth Warren.
That's great.
She could. I would personally like that because I think Warren would be much better on a lot of issues than Hillary, because Hillary is more establishment. She was actually more right wing than candidate Obama.
She took a considerable amount of money, more than any other congressman at that time in the late 2000s.
Yeah, see, that's why...
From the healthcare insurance, the insurance industries.
Yeah, see, so that's why I say that.
Right, she was basically paid to shut her mouth.
She's paid and bought for it, just like the rest of them.
Well, she was a huge proponent for the single-payer healthcare system back in the day, and that was her fight of choice at one point. But like you said, they paid her off. Mm-hmm. They told her to shut her mouth and stop saying all that commie-liberty stuff.
She opened her mouth and they stuffed money in it.
Yep.
Well, anyway, going back to Glass-Steagal. Now obviously there are industry officials that are against it, and they even say that Glass-Steagal would not have prevented the financial crisis back in 2008. And they said, "We believe that the Congress modernized the regulatory framework through Dodd-Frank," which is a joke because Dodd-Frank is a joke, and that addressed the problems we found in the crisis. Laugh along with me. What problems did Dodd-Frank solve? None. It's not even fully implemented. So this already is a bunch of bullshit, and this is from an industry spokesman. I believe his name was Talbot. That's his last name, Talbot. Scott Talbot, and he's the senior vice president for public policy at the Financial Services Roundtable, which is that's a lobbying group for the biggest banks. Funny how the lobbyist for the biggest banks lobbies and says, "Hey, Dodd-Frank was enough," even though it's incredibly weak and not even fully implemented yet. But it's more than enough. You don't have to go all Glass-Steagal on us now. Don't do that. He also said that returning to Glass-Steagal would take the industry backward. Yeah, backward to where they were actually somewhat regulated.
Right, yes, that's what he doesn't want.
Oh, exactly. And he said, also, quote, "It's better to take the industry into the present, to modernize rather than go back into the 1930s. Yeah, but maybe this law, which was from the 1930s, which was in response to the
greatest
economic
depression
collapse.
our country has ever seen.
The greatest depression that we've had ever. Maybe going back to, because there was a reason that we adopted Glass-Steagal, and it worked up until 1999, until it was repealed. How many crashes did we have since? How many crashes did we have in that time?
No,
how many depressions?
We had a small recession in the
early
recession
80s. In the 1980s, but nothing on the size of 2008 or 1929. Right. Now, what Senator Warren said finally about this is that she said what Glass-Steagal can do is wind some more of the risk out of the system. It can help bring down the size of the largest banking institutions. Now, we all know that big banks, they're too big to fail, right? Too big to jail, according to Eric Holder, which is absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. So anything that we can do to reduce the size of the banks is a good thing. And this won't exactly do it, but at least it'll stop them from, needing as much of a bailout as they did before, and stop it from spending our depositor money on their Wall Street casino.